Hello everyone, you're watching You Got It with Warrior Woman 91. I am here today in my pajamas with very little makeup on, and I'm here to just I'm going to be talking about Frozen. I'm going to be talking about the fact that my pajamas are absolutely wonderful, fantastic, and they're so amazing. I had to do a show in them because they're so warm, they're so amazing. You guys can pick them up on Amazon. They are not sponsoring me. They are just that good. Uh Amazon, I can put the link in the description so you guys can get the same exact ones, but they are amazing. They're wonderful. I could live in these. They're probably going to smell terrible with how often I wear them and how little I want to change into other clothes, but that's beside the point. They're amazing. Everyone should get them. Get your Christmas pajamas at Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. So, I did want to talk about Frozen. I went and saw Frozen, I should say, Frozen 2. And I wanted to preface this by saying the first Frozen movie in 2013 that everybody got upset about was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first Frozen movie. I thought it was really cute. Obviously it's got a shallow plot, and it's not the most I don't know, high-minded movie, but it's adorable. Like I mean, the snowman was adorable. I know there's a lot of conservatives that got their underwear, wrapped in a knot over some of the messaging in the movie, and I fully acknowledge there's some poor messaging in the movie, and perhaps young children should not necessarily be watching the movie. It kind of just depends on. I mean, I'm not a parent, nor do I plan to be, but having been a child, I can say that maybe I wouldn't be watching this movie until I was a little bit older and could differentiate between the bad messaging versus the ever appealing animation, which again is why I wanted to see the second movie, because Disney pulled out all the stops. Disney wanted to just launch a money bomb, and they made a mint just so that they could invest that mint into this Frozen movie with their animation. It was visually stunning. It just the trailers alone were Disney showing off how much money they have and just flaunting it to the world. So that's that's the second thing that made it very appealing. I enjoyed the first one despite the shallow plot, despite how much it was hyped. I will speak to the hype real quick because that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people disliked the first Frozen movie, because on my initial watching of the movie, I went to the movie not thinking I didn't have any expectations. I just, my siblings wanted to go see it, and I went with them, and I didn't really know what I was going to see. And I was pleasantly surprised that I thought the animation was amazing. I did enjoy the soundtrack. And despite the shallow plot, I thought that the end of the first Frozen movie had a really nice twist at the end that I didn't expect, and it actually did have a good lesson at the end. I think it's a mistake for conservatives and Christians to just say, "Oh yeah, well we got to throw the whole thing out because of some of the other messaging in it." Yes, it's a very self-serving message from the I don't know. No, she's not even the villain. Elsa is supposed to be the antagonist, to some degree, or perhaps an anti-hero. And so she has some messaging that's a little bit self-serving, and self-worshipping, shall we say. But the end of the movie, which everyone seems to forget, is about somebody else sacrificing their own well-being and their own um, desires for somebody else. And I thought that was a really nice way to end the movie. And that's one of the reasons why I think the movie was so successful. I don't think it was just because of the infamous song that everybody heard in Walmart and in the bank and in Safeway and in every other grocery. It's in Target. It's everywhere. Every store has that song. And I'm not even going to name drop it at this point because you all know which song it is. I think that's one of the reasons why Frozen got a bad rap, though, because the Frozen hype got so overblown, and it was just far too much, you guys. I mean, I know Disney realized that they struck a gold mine and they needed to milk it for all it's worth, and that's why there's been frozen shorts and frozen on ice and frozen this, frozen toys and frozen castles and and if you just see the merch for this new show, I wish I was a kid at this time because I would love to have had all those toys and all the delicately made dresses for the dolls, and it's just stunning. But I think that's one of the reasons why the first Frozen movie got a bad rap, because when you first went into the movie, as I did, with no expectations, you find it was a decent movie. That it was, it was a feel good movie. You didn't have to think too hard. It was enjoyable to watch. And then you have the Frozen franchise milk. Let's milk the Frozen franchise for all it's worth, guys. When you have that, it makes it so that even if you did like the movie, now you don't like it because you're just sick of it. You're inundated with it constantly. You're just like, why? Why do I have to see this everywhere? It wasn't good enough to really warrant the hype. However, Disney, realized they could make money off of it, and so that's why the hype was there. So now we fast forward. That was 2013, and forever after. Now we fast forward to Frozen 2. So we've got Frozen 2. I went and saw it on Thursday night, not because I just had to see it immediately, but because that was just the way my schedule worked out and other people's schedules worked out. So I went and saw it on Thursday night, and I was actually really excited because the animation for this one, if you thought the animation for the last one was amazing, this one pulled out all the stops. Best animation I've ever seen in any movie ever. There's scenes that you can't even tell that it's CGI. I don't know what they did. They must have invested a lot of time and money into just making CGI water because the water looks real. There's other things that are a little bit more I don't know, they're a little bit rougher, but it's some of the most phenomenal animation I've ever seen. So it made me really I figured animation alone is going to make it worth my time to go and see this movie. Unfortunately, the animation couldn't save the plot, and they really seemed to sacrifice the plot on behalf of the animation in this movie. And on behalf of, the animation was amazing. The soundtrack was actually pretty good, even though a lot of the songs sounded like rip-offs of the songs from the original movie. But the animation was, yeah, both of those things were good, but at the end of the day, there's just a problem that I have with this whole it's like you can't even write a story anymore. It's like they invest so much time and money in the animation and in the music and in paying the actors and all that. It's like, okay, and then the writers, you guys just aren't worth anything. We're not going to pay you very much. We're going to get these B-level writers or even C-level writers, and we're just going to have you guys throw a bunch of overused plot points. Now, that's not to say the entire movie was like this. The story of Elsa had its decent moments, but I think that part of the reason why I enjoyed that was more so because the animation was really cool, not so much because the story was so deep. I did appreciate they did try to take it a little bit darker than I was expecting, and so that was good, but at the end of the day, the stakes were not as high as they were in the first movie, and considering they weren't that high in the first movie either, it's just it was disappointing on that level. The one of the things that irritated me the most, and I'm gonna start spoiling things, so if you guys haven't seen the movie yet, and I anticipate that a lot of you guys haven't, don't watch anymore because I'm gonna spoil it. But one of my big problems is the ultimate plot. There's two running themes throughout this movie, and one of them is Elsa trying to find what her true purpose is, basically. That's the story that's actually more interesting. I wish that they had focused on that a lot more, and I wish that they had made it so that at the end it's more of a big deal. I guess, of what happens, and again, the stakes were just not that high, and it's more of Elsa just finding out, oh, I'm a princess of this kind, or I'm just throwing that word in there. I mean, she basically finds out that she's some sort of almost deity like creature, and so but it's not like she it's just it's not satisfying. It's like, okay, so she worships herself basically, and that's just not very appealing to me. And it just, oh my gosh, I just found this out about myself, and oh wow, I am just so important, and I am just so this and so that. And it kind of just smacks in the face of the value that was put forth in the first movie, which was about not caring about yourself as much as you care about the person next to you. And this movie kind of turned that on its head, and it was like, no, it's all about me. It is all about me, guys. So that's my first problem with that part of the plot. And then my second problem is the second story that's kind of running through this is we find out that there was this conflict between the people of Arendelle and the Native Americans, which makes perfect sense because this is a Nordic country, or it's supposed to be set in a Nordic setting, and we have Native Americans running around, which makes perfect sense. First of all, there was some conflict with the grandfathers of both of those nations, and the grandfather of the Kingdom of Arendelle killed the grandfather of the Kingdom of the Native Americans because white man bad, because we've never ever heard that story before in the history of everything. We have never heard the white man bad, Indian man good story. We've never heard this before. It is a completely new plot device. I am shocked that this turned out in the way that it did. What is wrong with As you can see, that really irritated me because it made it so that I figured out the entire story about not even a third of the way into the movie, and you already know where this is going. You already know this is the white man bad story, so it means that the white man's descendants have to right the wrongs of the man who wronged the Indians, and the Indians never did anything wrong. It was never anything on their part that caused any of this. It's always the white man is bad. And I'm just so tired of this story. It's kind of like, you know how Frozen, the first movie, was okay. It was a solid, decent, didn't have to think too hard, feel good movie. Then it was overplayed. Then it was overplayed. Then it was overplayed. And the songs were overplayed. And you saw the movie 100 times. And then you saw it again. And then you saw it again. And then there was too much. There's merch everywhere. And there's advertising all in your face. And everything is just out of control. And I don't care anymore. That is how I feel about this white man bad Native American good story. I have heard it so many times. How many times? Okay, Disney did an entire movie about this plot device. Like the Pocahontas movie was all about this. But even that movie was more even-handed because it showed the truth, which was both sides had bad people on them. Wow, shocker. That's actually accurate. This movie just was like white man bad, white man bad, white man bad. The Native Americans didn't do anything wrong. We don't know how Native Americans got in the Nordic countries, but we're just using this because we don't have anything better and we want to milk this thing for all it's worth, and we have to have some sort of an agenda in here, and that's what their agenda is. So the last movie was all about Elsa coming out. This movie is about white man bad. This is how I feel. Okay, so I liked Frozen, and then they made me dislike it because they oversold it. So I don't care anymore. I don't care as much about the Frozen franchise anymore. That's how I feel about this white man bad Native American story. It's a compelling story from history that's accurate to some degree. But you tell it so many times, I don't care anymore. I wasn't there. My ancestors didn't have anything to do with the slaughter of Native Americans. My ancestors were getting drunk on some farm or field in Italy and making wine and doing all that stuff. They were impoverished Italians from southern Italy, and they were not slaughtering Indians. So my I don't feel any connection to this heritage other than I'm an American. But I just get tired of it. I just get so tired of it. I'm okay. So if you want to have a liberal or a progressive agenda or a message in a movie, fine, that's fine. But do it well. Don't just overuse your same old talking points over and over again. If you want to have a left-wing message in a movie, I'm giving you some solid advice here, guys. If you want to have a left-wing message in a movie, which you did in the first Frozen movie, you should see how many Christians are preaching Bible studies and giving actual sermons based on Frozen, which has a blatant left-wing message. That's how you do it. That's how, like, if you want to have a progressive message in the movie, make it compelling so that people of both sides can enjoy it. Don't just shoehorn this overused trope in here and then complain, well, you just were triggered by the messaging because you're not a progressive. No, it's boring. It's boring. I figured out half your movie before I'd even seen 20 minutes of it. Now, I got some people complaining to me on Twitter. It's a kid's movie. It's a kid's movie. It doesn't have to be anything. Why are you complaining about a kid's movie? There are some really fantastic kids' movies. The Hobbit book, not the movies, the Hobbit book was meant for children, and it's phenomenal. It's a masterpiece. Beauty and the Beast, the movie, is one of the best movies of all time, probably. Snow White is another good example, although that movie was not necessarily made for children. But these are children's stories. They're fantastic movies with well-written plots and believable characters, and so that's why I do hold these movies to some sort of standard. And that's like, it kind of smacks in the face. My standard isn't as high because, of course, they are children's movies. They're not going to be as, in depth or talking about serious issues or all of that. They don't have to necessarily follow that line. They're going to be, slightly juvenile, but kids are not stupid. I get tired of this. Like, I was thinking about serious things when I was 7 and 8 years old. I was thinking about, for example, like, where do you go when you die? All that kind of stuff. I was thinking about that at 7 and 8 years old. I don't know why, like, why do we have to dumb everything down for kids nowadays, like, so far? Like, I don't know. I was thinking about pretty dark, serious things as a child. Maybe I was just a strange child. But, you can ask my siblings also, maybe it's because you're a pastor's kid. When you're a pastor's kid, you're going to a lot of funerals, you're going to a lot of weddings, you're dealing with a lot of, like, adult things when you're a kid. Hold on, the cats are, stop it, bad. I don't know. But all I'm saying is, guys, just because it's a children's movie does not mean you should have poor quality writing or badly written plots or you shouldn't just discard. Here's another thing that I had an issue with in Frozen 2. In the first Frozen movie, you have the male character Kristoff, who's the what would you call it? He's the not necessarily a hero, but he's a side character, and he was pretty decently developed as a character in that movie. He was completely sidelined in the second movie. All he was just the star-crossed lover who was trying to propose the entire movie, and that was his only plot. And he didn't get to do anything. He didn't really get to go on the adventure. The two girls just leave him behind like he's worthless. And I just think that that's kind of offensive for a couple of reasons. Number one, you wanted me to care about this character in the last movie. Now you're just going to cast him aside in this movie. Number two, the way they treated him is exactly the way feminists hate women to be treated. Feminists hate it when there is the scenario of the male heroes go off to battle and leave the women at home to be there when they come back to make their dinner. that's the way they treated Kristoff in this movie. He was just, you know, the two female heroes went off to war, and they left Kristoff at home to make the dinner and propose and be just this worthless character, just like the token boyfriend, essentially. I didn't like that either. I didn't appreciate it. So those are my thoughts on Frozen. I just think that, just to that last point, if it's bad when men do it to women, then it's also bad when women do it to men. I don't appreciate that. Like, don't just sideline your supporting character like that. You need to have development for all of the characters that were in the last movie, or I'm gonna be a little bit ticked off. So those are my points about Frozen. I really just wanted to touch on it early because I, gotta get the clicks, you guys. And also, I didn't want everybody to think, I feel like I gave the wrong impression on Twitter, like, you can't see any of the flaws in Frozen? It's not... Yeah, there's plenty of flaws in the first Frozen movie. There's also a lot of flaws in the second Frozen movie, and I think that the second Frozen movie was unfortunately a misfire and did not live up to the, the lightheartedness of the first one. And yeah, I'm just disappointed. You guys you can invest so much time and money into your animation and your music and all of that. You just can't leave the plot. The whole point of a movie is to tell a story. It's not just to be like a piece of art on the TV. It's kind of the way I feel about the Star Wars movies. A lot of the arguments about the Star Wars movie, well, they're visually stunning, so it doesn't matter if the plot sucks. Yeah, no. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It does. You have to... The whole point. The plot is the most important part. The plot and the characters. The plot and the characters, you guys. Those are the two most important things. It's not important to have visually stunning effects. You can have... There's so many movies I can think of. The animated Lord of the Rings movies are better than the current round of Star Wars movies. Not because their visual effects are great, but because they actually tell a story. There's so many movies that had poor visual effects compared to nowadays that were way better movies. The original Star Wars movies are a great example. The special effects back then were not that great compared to now. And they're still the best of all of the movies. They're the reason why the Star Wars franchise exists. It's frustrating when people try to... I don't know. It's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. They're just trying to cheat the system. Well, we just really want an excuse to use all this great animation. But it doesn't matter if the story is good or if the plot is good. It's just very frustrating to me. So this week is Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to say that throughout this holiday season, I do plan on still doing an episode every week. I'm hoping to keep that up. But, if I miss something, scream at me. If there's like a topic you guys need me to cover or whatever, or you want me to clarify if something that I've said on Twitter that I've offended people with, which I am, I never do that. I never offend any of you on Twitter. That doesn't happen, does it? No, actually, it happens every day. Every time I post something, I've offended someone. So, anyway, I do plan on posting videos throughout the Christmas season. I don't plan on taking any breaks. I've got a great episode coming up next week that I recorded with my good friend Donovan Fowler. You will finally get to see him on camera. He's been on 2 other episodes before, but it was back on when it was audio only. So you guys finally get to watch Donovan Fowler talk about movies, and it's wildly hilarious. You guys are gonna love this episode. I got him. He sang songs from The Grinch, and we talked about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I tell a great Christmas story that I think you guys will really enjoy. Anyway, we're going to start getting into some more holiday-themed episodes, especially considering my pajamas and my fall-colored pillows and all the rest of it. So stay tuned. Coming up, we've got some great episodes coming. Spencer Clavin hopefully is coming back in December. I'm still, my end-of-the-year resolution is to get Jessica Fletcher on the show. So stay tuned for all of that, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode.